was to have multiple headings and change the second one. The point being, know how to target something by more than just its element name, because if you did query selector element name and there were two of those elements, it would always grab the first one. So we want to grab the second, but we know tricks for that, right? So let's just put another H1 down here. And we'll say day 2. Let's give, we could give them an ID, we could give them a class, whatever. How about we just give the second one an ID of, or that's a class, ID of day heading. Sure. Day heading camel cased. So I could just change this query selector here to hash day heading. Refresh the page. There's 2 of them now. I click it, and it changed the second one. That's all we have to do. Change that one string and add the heading. Piece of cake. All using tricks we learned yesterday. So I will add that and commit. Change the second heading instead. Very good. So I don't know if anyone happened to notice this, but in this case, I wrote the function down here, but I referred to the function up here. Why did that work? Why didn't I have to declare the function first? Well, there's this crazy little thing called function hoisting in JavaScript. We'll talk about it more when we get into more complicated objects. But if you use a function declaration of this type, basically this function can be referred to any place within the current scope, the current function scope. So you can use it before you've declared it, as long as you're inside the same parent function, or in this case, in the global scope. We learned yesterday we can also do something like const handle click equals anonymous function. Does that still work? Refresh. And already we get an error. Uncaught reference error. Handle click is not defined. Index.js line 2. That's what the colon means. It means which line the error occurs on. So looking at line 2, reference error, something is not defined, is a really common error. Line 2, we see a reference to handle click. So handle click is not what we thought it was at that point. We expected it to be a function, and according to this, it is not defined. And that is because we referred to a variable before we defined it. So if we do it this way, even though it does almost exactly the same thing, with const, that thing does not exist until it's actually declared. If you use a function declaration beginning with the keyword function, then it does this crazy thing called hoisting. Hoisting is the weird part. This is kind of what we would expect to happen. And most of the time we're going to define our functions this way anyway. But that's the difference. So can't do it this way. If you do it this way, you have to put it above the line where you add the event listener. I'll go ahead and move that up there. Refresh, error goes away, and it does work. Before I change that, we'll pretend it's before I changed it. So we have the error, but I didn't actually try clicking the button to see what would happen. Let's see what happens when I click the button. Absolutely nothing. Because what we did was add an event listener that runs undefined. And actually, it gave up because it ran into the error, I think. So it wouldn't have even done that. So it does totally break it. And before I commit, I'm going to refresh and make sure I did fix it. It is fixed. So I'm going to type git log to see my last commit, and it was changed the second heading instead. So all I did now was change the function declaration to an assignment. declare the function with const. Questions so far? This is all basically stuff that we did yesterday. Just demonstrating a few new tricks with it. Good?